Hey, what's up, everybody? Hope everybody can see the camera, and um, we're doing good. Um, okay, we're gonna get into it. We're gonna do DragonGuard. A lot of people here, if you don't know me by my live stream appearances on Mike's Blacklist Universe channel, um, my name is Kevin Sharpe. I've done lots of work for Marvel and DC Comics, Image Comics, Dynamite Entertainment, a whole bunch of other comic publishers through the years. I've been doing comics for about 25 years, maybe more. And um, hey, Eric Hawkins, you're in the chat. Want to say hey? Thanks for coming to it. Um, so basically, today, um, I've decided, I wanted to talk to you about DragonGuard. And with DragonGuard, uh, I, hey, Zombie Kebab, my fiance, hey. I wanted to talk about DragonGuard and what got me here, what got me to this point to do DragonGuard. What is DragonGuard? It's a fantasy comic book that I'm working on. In the background, you probably hear my chatty birds. We have two cockatiels that are dueling right now. So basically, what got me here with doing DragonGuard was that a couple of years ago, I started to notice, not necessarily that I was a huge follower of Comicsgate, but I checked it out because a lot of people were complaining. I'd see a lot of professionals complaining about Comicsgate. Comicsgate is this and that. Some pretty nasty stuff. And I was like, I knew some of the people, or at least I had been acquaintances with some of the people, and it didn't sound like the type of people that I thought were like that. The way they were being described as being nasty, political, they had to harass people and all this other stuff. And I didn't see that. That didn't square with me with the people that I talked to. And especially, later when it became people that were maybe studio mates of mine, and then you'd hear this stuff. Hey, Captain Hiltz, what's going on? And I just basically, there's some people in there like friends of mine, like Brian Shearer, who's awesome. I'm not saying that he's Comicsgate, but I'd seen, if you were a conservative creator or had any, kind of any political leanings that were a little bit different than what there seemed to be a large group in the comics industry, you just see some negative stuff. And what really brought it home was I was watching a few videos, and and I was working for Marvel at the time. Creative Services, if you're not familiar, it's where they do a lot of the product stuff, a lot of commercial business, contracts with businesses where they do custom comics, things like that. And I had seen a few editors' tweets that were sort of like, "Hey, we're watching you. We're you voted this way, so we're watching you. You're going to pay." I'm paraphrasing, but they were very disturbing to me. I was just like, man, as a person who votes, I was like, man, it's pretty disturbing that you're going to hold somebody accountable, or if you know of who did this or did that. And actually, a writer I was working with on one of the books, I won't say that, I don't want to draw in a big Twitter drama kind of deal. A writer I was working with who worked at DC, some back channel Facebook messages, kind of attacked me. And I never had a beef with this guy. And he attacked me and was like, hey, if you voted for this, F that guy, And I had never had a problem with him, went out to dinner with him, been friendly with him. And so it got to a point where I started looking around. I said, the landscape's shifting, and that's not why I want to draw comics. It's not where I got into the industry. I love art. I love a lot of cool artists. Our industry's been blessed with a lot of really awesome, really amazing pencilers and inkers and colorists, and I've been fortunate to work with a lot of people that were my heroes. George Perez, he inked some covers of mine, and I'm actually segueing into this. George, I was a fan of Tim Townsend. Still am, but certain creators found out, the way I voted, and it didn't matter whether or not, I'm a nice guy. It doesn't matter whether or not I'm busting my rear to be better and try to be some of these, the next top. It's maybe not the next top. It might be ego, but I wanted to push myself to be toward a top guy. And I think everybody, if you're honest with yourself, that's where you want to be. And I started to lose friends, and I was just, man, it's so depressing to see people, because you had a constitutional right to vote a certain way, and if they can call wind of it, you're going to pay for that, or you're this and that. So it was really distressing. But there's a lot of good people that I'd worked with, and George Perez, I was bringing that up, and George had inked some covers on a fantasy book called Book that I worked on. Yeah, it's actually called Book. The reason being because it was an anthology, and it was a series of things, and we just thought it was kind of kitschy, kind of tongue-in-cheek to go ahead and call it Book. It was a black and white anthology, and we just, at the time, I thought it was my best work. Actually, I go back and I hate it now, but at least what I was doing at the time. And George inked all of my covers. Absolutely amazing. If you've been in this industry for any period of time and you've been collecting comics, George, and that definitely during the 80s, you want to talk about your top guys. I mean, George and John Byrne were kind of neck and neck for being the top guys, George at DC and John mostly at Marvel, but then he switched over. But I was a fan of that stuff. I'm a fan of Dale Kuhn. I'm a fan of Adam Hughes. I'm a fan of Carlos Pacheco. Oh man, so many people. And then there was inkers like Scott Williams and Art T. Bear, and then oh my God, there's so many. Carl Story. There's so many good guys in this industry. So my love of all that stuff was there. And so when I was doing this fantasy book, that was what I was having fun with. And I had gotten a good break by going to CrossGen. I'd been at CrossGen for a few months. Again, if you don't know me, welcome to the stream. But I really enjoyed just so many elements. And when I was at CrossGen, I was in a big group of artists. And there was a seemingly kind of underbelly of a lot of office politics. And I know everybody probably has that. If you're any kind of business and you're making money and decent money, and there's always going to be those people that want to ascend, and they'll do whatever it takes to ascend. And if that means giving you hell or making your life crap so they can look better, there's always those people. I'm sure everybody knows there's also good people. And I enjoyed the hell out of being around late at night with a lot of other artists. And so I started to see that in a lot of the way that CG was. And, I got to thinking. I was thinking around, I wanted to see what I could bring to the table. I grew up a fan of He-Man, Thundercats, Visionaries, Gargoyles, you name the cartoons, man. There were so many things that I thought would look amazing. And right around the time of, the big image explosion, I was sitting there going, man, what would it look like if Jim Lee or Will Spertasio or Dale Kim got their hands on some of these properties, what would a Dale Kim Thundercats look like, or a Will Spertasio He-Man, or, or Skeletor. I think he's probably more suited for Skeletor. But, it started to think, it's like, hey, man, there's so much good stuff out here. And there's so many good artists and stuff. And I looked around and I said, I want to do those eventually. And I got a taste of it with a He-Man short story. It never got published. It was supposed to be part of a Target 2-pack. Ended up not getting published, and then later was published in Dark Horse's compendium around 2015. It actually got published in, it was basically a compendium of the mini comics. And if you know anything about He-Man or that property, the Masters of the Universe property, every time you bought a toy, you got a little mini comic. And it was about, 12 pages long, maybe 12 or 16. I think it was 12. But you get these little mini comics. I mean, again, going back to the fun, and these were, a large group of them were drawn by like Alfredo Alcala, who was just an amazing penciler, and dude his anatomy was on point, and it was just fun. His stuff looked really good for fantasy, and I felt like my stuff kind of leans towards that. It kind of leans towards Alfredo's stuff. There was also people like Mark Texiera, who was doing work earlier at the time. Bruce Timm, a lot of his first work was in those mini comics and stuff. And it's amazing. If you were to see his stuff, the color pencil and the rendering, he is completely different from his Batman the animated series style. But I was a big fan of all of that. And they all had these connections to Masters. And a lot of it looked like what I grew up with. I grew up with all these guys. And I was always a big fan of like these big kind of barbarian dudes and stuff. I was watching wrestling when I was younger. And my favorite wrestlers were the Road Warriors. And a lot of those guys are huge, jacked man with the face paint and the spikes and everything. And it was just fun, fun. And, all this kind of came to a head. This is where my head was going. I started to see how, more political a lot of the creators were getting. It was bleeding into the comics, and it's disheartening because it wasn't what I was growing up on. And, some people say, oh, well, look, X-Men was political. They were only political in the premise, and the premise wasn't anything like the politics we have today. And I'll argue that with anybody. Stan didn't, I don't want to get too political, but Stan didn't write, Stan and Jack, and then later, Chris Claremont, they didn't write these singular for one group. They wanted people, if you happen to be a kid in the school who was picked on and bullied, you might identify with the X-Men. If you were, a black man in the 70s, you could pick up that book and enjoy X-Men. It was for everybody. It wasn't for a single group or a certain type of group and things like that. And those books never, the storylines, there were a lot of crossovers and big stories and things like that. And you don't go back and see that there was any major political reason for that stuff. And so everybody just kind of justified it. And I started to get disheartened. I had talked to friends and things like that. And I got disheartened with it. And I started to see some of these creators pushing back on that and saying, hey, we're not like this. And I kind of empathize with that because it's like, it's not fair. I know I went out to dinner with you. We don't talk about, you go out to dinner with people, you enjoy yourself, and you don't talk about anything kind of disparaging about anybody. You usually, you joke, you have a good time, but it isn't anything like that. So this is where I was going. It's a long way around. But DragonGuard came from me talking to people and said, hey, I want to do something that I enjoy, because it's been a long time since I've done books where I felt like, I really could pour everything into it. I got really lucky. I had some great editors at Marvel and the Creative Services. Those are the great people. And they had gave me a Hulk book with Thor and the Hulk, and it was basically it was being distributed at a game, an anniversary game between the Jets and the Vikings. And I had finally gotten to draw the Hulk. I had finally, it had been ages. I'd been circling around projects that would have the Hulk in it, but I never got a chance to draw him. And it was so fun. But the problem was, and I don't think it was a bad deadline by any means, but things changed, and you didn't have a lot of time. I had geared up. I had went a long time without sequential work. I was doing a lot of commissions and things like that, and I went a long time with sequential work. So going from 0 to 60 back into pages, it just made it harder. So not everything was my best work, or I would have to compromise because compromise because of the story or the deadline requirements. And this is normal stuff you go through with anything. So I'm not complaining, but I was just saying that what I wanted to give to that book, and I wanted to give to every book, wasn't as good as what I wanted to see published, And for you guys, what I want to do with DragonGuard is give you some of the best stuff I can. I want you to feel like where you picked up a lot of the fun stuff where Jim Lee was on his groove and really rolling, and that's what I want DragonGuard to feel like. I want you guys to have something fun out of it. I want it to feel like when you go back to the comic shops and there's a cool story and just badass artwork, badass stuff, and just stuff where you go, oh yeah, and everything could tell a story, but still, these panels that look like they could be posters, and that's where I want it, where my book will come in for Indiegogo. And right now I've got the book is up on I got a pre-launch page. Sorry, this is new. This is my first time, so handling all this stuff is a little crazy. But this is about just giving you the most awesome book I can give you. And a lot of people say, well, what's the book about? And I'll tell you, the hardest part has been trying to come up with an elevator pitch, as they say, that would give you an idea of it, but not give everything away. Because if I say I love Thundercats or I love He-Man, then you're immediately going to go to thinking about what are those stories about, or you're going to think what's inspiring those. And I don't want to give it all away. And that's been the hardest part, to not give you so much that you put it together before it ever hits your hands. And so I'm going to pull it up here. So here we go. Here's our elevator pitch. You guys, hang on. It's on Twitter. And I'll read it here. On a faraway planet, when an ancient evil arises, a sworn group of heroes, the Order of the DragonGuard, arise to aid and protect its savior, a humble teenage son of a blacksmith who must sacrifice everything to be a hero. So anyway, that's the general idea. Here you go. And it's going to be fantasy. It's fantasy with a lot of fun stuff. It'll be PG-13-ish. It won't be R. There won't be a lot of R kind of themes. It's just I want to be able to put. That's another thing our industry has got a problem with right now is we're not getting things to kids, and there's so much fighting for kids' attention. It's a tall order to say, "Hey, I want to do a book for kids," and think it's going to be a huge success because there's so much fighting for their attention. You've got video games, toys, maybe. I think even most kids nowadays don't really care too much about toys, and those things. The mobile devices and things they suck up so much of the kids' time. So, that's the problem. And that's the tall order. And that's where I got to go. And by the way, if you could share the link. This is my first stream. I'm going to do a few more. The plan is to finally get on here and do a lead up to the launch. We're not launched yet, but we've got the mailing list that's on Indiegogo, and you get on that, and you get a 10% discount. I'm also looking at some other options to reward the early bird people, and I've been talking to people like Mike S. Miller. Mike's been great. I'm gonna say it right now. I don't care. If you got whatever drama you guys got going on, or anybody that has with Mike, whatever. But Mike's been awesome. It's been a blessing. He's constantly been supportive. Um, Another shout out to Antonio Bryce. Antonio contacted me on during one of Ethan's streams. I happened to be on there, and I like to make jokes and things like that in the chat. And Ethan happened to recognize me in the chat, and he said, "Hey, Kev," and this and that. And Antonio was the first one, along with I think it was Nasser Rabadi, and both of those guys were just like, "Hey, Kev, you gonna do a book?" And then I was like, "Well, I've got a few things in my head, but I don't have anything solid." And Antonio was just completely supportive, and he had nothing but nice words to say to me. He knew who I was, knew what body of work I had. So I wanted to give a little shout out there. Same thing for Edwin. Edwin Boyette was constantly bringing up what, just besides being nice to me, he was just bringing up all the work that I had done, the body of work that I had done for Marvel, DC. I mean, books like Extreme X-Men, Army of Darkness. I did a running on Army of Darkness. Big fan of Ash. Legion of Superheroes, run on Legion. A lot of times I was fill-in guy, done a ton of different fill-in things. Generation X, Marvel, New Mutants, Black Panther, some Thor-related projects. I did a Thor tie-in for the first Thor movie. So here's why. So that's a good idea of the body of work I had. I mean, there's tons of other stuff. Lots of stuff DC, Man of Steel fill in, 9 issues of Legion of Superheroes, not consecutively. There were a couple, there was like a 3-issue run and then a 6-issue run. So there's so many other books, and trying to remember all this stuff is crazy. I did Resident Evil. I did a couple issues of Resident Evil. I worked at CrossGen. I did a few issues of Sigil, did an issue of Mystic. And that was fun, being around people like Brandon Peterson, John Dell. Let me see. Trying to remember all the cool stuff you can look up. But anyway, I've been doing this for 25 years, and I wanted to do something that maybe is more my speed, something where I could show you what I'm capable of, as opposed to always being the deadline guy, or a deadline guy. And I will show you just again a few pieces of artwork. I have to do it on screen. I don't have my other camera with me right now. But anyway, here's a page from the book. Inks that I'm working on. I don't know if it's potatoing, but I will try to make sure it focuses. And Captain Hiltz, how's your campaign email list looking? It's looking pretty good, but we need to do better. Straight out, I'll tell you right now, it's good. I've got a good list of people, but it's not where I want to be. I need to at least get up 400, 500 people. I want to be, I really need to spread the word. And, it's one of those things where I'm sure we're going to get there with the response has been great. Everybody that likes it, really like it. It's kind of one of those things where people see it and they seem excited. So I'm going to trust you guys. You're out there. You're telling me it's badass. I'm going to keep on chugging away and keep doing what I do. I have a great colorist. His name is Alonzo Espinoza. And Alonzo's doing some great stuff. There's a note about the coloring. I'm a fan of Battle Chasers. There's another one, Joe Madureira's Battle Chasers. And the colors on there, liquid. And we're really at the height of everything in the late 90s and into 2000. I think as a coloring house, they broke up. There were 2 guys, Aaron Lucen, I think, and Christian Lichten. I can't remember their names, but anyway, I I'm a fan of that coloring, and it's very bright. And I think that when the idea behind that is that when you go into comic shops, a lot of the painting, if you look at like the old Gold Key books and a lot of those Marvel magazines and things like that, they were painted, but they were very painterly, and so a lot of those things appeal to the more adult and teenage readers and things like that, more adult. And so part of my idea or strategy here is I want to appeal to the kids, and some of that is with the brighter colors, the awesome colors, and that's what I wanted from Alonzo. So Alonzo does some great stuff, great effects, and he's very minded towards a lot of that style. And he's been working with me, and again, we're doing this out of pocket. And so being able to pay Alonzo has been a little tough, just because, as far as getting pages done and getting them ready for the launch, I'm taking that out of pocket. So everybody's going, yeah, well, that's what Indiegogo is for. You're supposed to do this. But I don't want to fall into the same traps. I don't want to fall into necessarily figuring out what it's going to cost and then maybe not have the campaign come through, or figuring out what it's going to cost and just wait and pay him afterwards, because I need artwork or color work done now. I want to, make it pop. So I know a lot of people have hit me and say, Kev, that's what the Indiegogo is for. You can do that later. But I want there to be artwork. I've seen a lot of people complain when the books are late and things like that. And I need to do that. That's something important to me, is make sure that these things are there's a good body of work ready to go when I launch, so that there isn't a long wait time or people are not stumbling. Things happen. I understand that too. I was hospitalized for diabetes back last year in November. Not last year, but the year before last. And high blood pressure and diabetes. And slowly I dealt with vertigo for so long. And if you know anything about vertigo, it can incapacitate you when you're not expecting it. It just hits you. One day you're just hit with heavy vertigo and you can't walk, things like that. Your balance is thrown completely off. And I got some medicines for it, but my doctors were worried that it might have been neurological. It's not, thank God. We kind of sussed out what the problem was. It's in this ear. So we're good there. But I understand there's things in life that hit people, but the idea is to make sure I have a body of work ready so that when you fund these things, I won't be late. I'm not going to go into, attacking or saying anything derogatory about other people's book that've been late. I mean, there's so many reasons for it, and it's a new thing for us. You're immediately publishers, you're immediately jumping into being a publisher. And anyway, we'll talk about all that stuff. But anyway, I want to show you guys some more. Here's some artwork from another page of DragonGuard that I'm working on. That face is a little skewed, but we got that covered. It's just basically kind of a placeholder until I fix the problem. But there's a good shot from another page. And then, I'm in the layout process. And, I'll have certain days where I'm working on the pages, and then on certain days where I'll work on layouts and story parts. And Eric Hawkins, thank you. Looks like a sweet project. Awesome. Thank you, sir. And here's a layout for a double page spread. You'll get to see all the baddies, the henchies. There'll be some really cool stuff. And if you go on KevHulk73 on Twitter, I have some pages on there. You'll get to see some of the actual completed colors and things like that. And I want you guys to tell me what you did. I mean, tell me what you enjoy out of the campaign. What do you enjoy? I'm not a technical genius. I have to get people do this, but if you like animation, I know with Star Blades, Kyle was killing it with the animation and stuff, and it's exciting and enjoyable. But I don't have that technical skill. Hopefully I'll get somebody to help me. But the whole goal with this is for you as a consumer, as somebody who likes this. I'm going to start. You got to crawl before you can run. And that's where I'm going with things. I'm crawling. I'm going to look for the basics, get it right, get the basics right, and then if there's a second campaign, if there's a third issue, then we can jump on to those other things too. But I need you guys, if you can, and take a little time out of your day, if you can, and just share the artwork you see. Tell people. I'm going to be putting on Facebook. I have a Facebook page. It's kevinsharpeart.com, or it's at facebook.com. And you can check me there, Kevin Sharpe Art, and I'll be posting stuff there too. Also at KevHulk73 at Instagram. I'll also be posting stuff there too. And the idea is to get this up here. I need to get the list up. It's not where I want to be. It's doing good. I'm really excited. It's better than what I could ask for, but I want more. I want you guys keep checking out, get on that list. I'm trying to think of some extras to give you guys too for the early adopters. Maybe a specialized print that I could send you guys. A special print that's only for you backers, the early adopters, or something really cool. And Captain Hilt said Reddit may be a good site to share. Yep. All right. Well, we'll do that too. And I'll try to let you know when I do more of these streams. Completely new. So everything is, everything is completely new to me with this one. It's not like being on with Mike. I have to control the comms too. And I also have to keep you guys entertained or interested in what I got to say, which is, I'm a very quiet person when it comes to that stuff. You guys see me on mics. I don't have a laundry list of things I can talk about. I don't like to complain a lot about a lot of things for entertainment. Just an example, not attack, but I never grew up with Star Wars, so I'm not mad or happy with any of the Star Wars stuff. So I can only tell you, hey man, check out these new Thundercats figures from Super 7. Get on the list for Super 7 because they look awesome. Let me see here, and I might get a look and see if we got some more artwork. But in the process, there's a few more pages. So again, just my layouts. I start out really small, comic size, and then I blow these up. I don't want to tell you too much of what's going on here because it'll spoil the story. But you get to see a little bit of my process with it. This is actually page 1. When you open up the book, you're seeing the page 1. Now, granted, I jumped around, but I had an epilogue, or is it a prologue or epilogue? Well, anyway, at the beginning of the book, I'm going to assume it's maybe a prologue. And I had this scene in mind. So I had actually started other pages, but I had this scene in mind. So this was going to be I went back to it and said, this has got to be kind of catchy. So there's a page from that. It says page 1. And then this is pages 2 and 3, where we get to see the whole group of henchies. And there's the main villain, Cryptogore, on the end there. You guys have seen him. He's been the main villain on a lot of the pages. And yeah, and Captain Hills, yeah, exactly. I agree with you, man. Captain Hills, I agree. Just my opinion, don't fall into the trap of offering a bunch of swag unless your campaign is doing really well. Keep it clean and simple. Make the book itself the best possible. Exactly. That's the big thing, is I'm worried about doing a good job and giving you the best book first, and then all this extra stuff. Because, man, I don't have a big crew to help me, and I don't have a lot of resources. these things will be learned. Mike's given me a lot of help. Mike's been really cool. I have other people I can ask too. But it's crawl, like you said, Captain Hill. It's crawl, or at least I was saying it before. Crawl before you can run, and that's what I'm doing. Yeah, exactly. If you offer perks, keep them simple and don't break the bank. And yeah, and part of it is just trying to give you guys incentives for checking it out. My first idea is maybe I can give you a specialized print for the first one because I want to do something where you constantly are like, "Ooh, check that out, man! Check that out." I had been seeing a lot of stuff. I've been on online seeing a lot of high res shots of Dale's pit pages, and I'm like, man, that was so cool. It was such a huge book back in the day, and you look at Pit, and it's amazing. Seeing those actual pages. There were so many good people at that time, and the point I'd make about my own stuff, I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but I'm saying there's things that I would like to do. I want to excite you guys. I want people to enjoy it. I want it to be high octane, real big and in your face. And Dale was like that. Dale didn't draw everything. Well, I can say it in present tense too, but Dale, when he was doing Pit and Hulk, he didn't draw everything. Not everything was perfect about his stuff, but the stuff he did was amazing. The stuff when you saw Pit, everything was badass. Maybe his, sometimes he would draw, and it's just a analytical thing. It's not a trashing because I love Dale, loves Dale. But if you looked at his stuff and analyzed, he'd have, really big heads. His characters would have really big heads on his normal people and things like that. And it was just something that was his thing, and when you saw Dale draw something, you knew what it was. But when he drew the Hulk or anything else, when he was really excited and, when it came to the really flashy stuff, it was badass. And that's what I wanted to, that's how I see myself in some respects. Not everything I do maybe is good. I'm never going to draw women. Let me put it like this. I'm never going to draw women as awesome as Adam Hughes. I'm never going to color something as awesome as, whoever. I'm never going to be able to handle some things like Mike does or things like that as good as he does. But what I do, I hope it makes you excited and it's going to be badass. I'm shaking my camera here. Sorry. And also, I'll show you another page. Here's another page I'm working on. Basically, what I do is I try to take a couple of days and lay out the next section of the book. So when I'm showing you all these layouts, it's basically where I'm working on it right now. Here's the main, it's Laura, the main female character in the book. I'll pull back a little bit. And then this little headshot down here is Aetheron. It's a talkie page, but you get introduced to Zalara. And name may not stick. I'm playing around with that. But you can get a good idea. Tough female, strong female. I'm a big fan of, if you've seen me on streams lately, I was a big fan of the Cara Dune character from Mandalorian. And so you'd see me on the streams talking about her, probably on Mike's stream and stuff. And I thought she was just awesome. So I like, sometimes I'm, the more athletic women characters and stuff. So anyway, I'll go again and say that in closing, I'm going to be wrapping it up here. I don't want to take too long. I'm a little nervous. I'm a little scatterbrained. I'm all over the place. But in closing, if you love that stuff, if you really, really want a really fun fantasy book, stuff is fun. It's going to be some jokes. When I say that, there's, a lot of people are like, oh, the Marvel movies have too many jokes. I'm going to try to do jokes, and I like humor, but I don't like humor all the time. But there's going to be some humor in it. There's no soy lattes, man. And there's going to be, Captain Hilt highlighting the ladies is a good idea. But there's going to be a couple of female characters that are more in line of those kind of the 80s characters and things like that. Um, there's no politicizing or anything like that. If I draw a character that I think needs to be sexy, she's going to be sexy, and I don't care. I do not give a damn whether or not you're offended. I do not care. But that's if it needs it. If I have an athletic character who's tough, I'm not going to shy away from that either. I'm not going to draw her like a bodybuilder, but I'm not going to shy away from being an athletic character either. That's another thing you need to understand about me. If I'm going to do something, I don't really give a damn if what the current sensibilities are. If I think it's something fits, it's gonna be there. If I think you guys are gonna like it, it's gonna be there. No porn, no nothing like that. But I'm not gonna shy away from making a sexy character. I love J. Scott Campbell. Just a aside there, and you guys, it's to be fun. There was a story about Stan Lee, where Stan was getting kind of fed up working for Timely, and I think it was Timely. I think it was at the time it was called Timely. It may have been different, but Stan was working for Marvel, and he finally had gotten to a point where he was just fed up, and he's like, "Hey, none of this stuff I'm enjoying writing." I think it was the romance stuff, maybe. You historians out there, you can correct me on that, but he got tired of it and just said, judging, but repeating the story that I'd heard a few times. He had told his wife, he's like, "Dude, I'm telling you, sweet, you gotta. I'm getting tired of this stuff. I'm getting tired of writing this stuff. I have a lot of ideas going around, and I'm thinking about leaving." And she said, "Well, if you're leaving, why not write something that you really enjoy? Just throw it out there, And if you're fed up, just get it out there, throw it down, and actually do something you enjoy." And that's where I'm kind of at, where my head is. I'm not saying I'm Stan, there's no way in hell. But the point is, I want to give you guys the unfiltered, fun, crazy art that I enjoy, and that I enjoy drawing, where it's kind of been restrained, and I've always had to kind of do things everybody else's way. And I've never got to a point. I wasn't at a point where people came to me and say, "Hey, Kev, why don't you work with this writer and you come up with this stuff?" It's never like that. Not for me anyway. And every now and then they'd ask me if there was an inker that I liked, and maybe I could work with it, maybe, and that's not bad. I mean, there's plenty of inkers I work with, and I love those guys to death, the ones that we get along well and everything. But nobody ever really came to me and said, how do you want to do it your way? Maybe this will sell. Maybe this will put asses in seats, as the term in the wrestling. But what will sell? They never asked me, and I just did what I was told. Do the book, stick by the script, and now I want to give you guys the unfiltered stuff. So I really, there's been lots of good guys. Everybody's welcomed me, like on Mike's streams. Miggs, Captain Hiltz, Mark Anthony, a whole bunch of people have just been nothing but supportive and had great reactions and been really happy about everything they see from me. And that's such a huge, it's a huge ego boost, because when you're stuck in the room almost all day, and you got kids and you're just trying to do the best you can for them, and I've done this for years. I've been kind of the go-to guy to hire for fill-ins and stuff. So now I get to tell it to you, give you the unfiltered stuff, and just give you the best stuff I can. And I want to thank you guys for having me be a part of, just this whole thing. And if you can, share. And I want to thank Mike again for Mike kind of gave me the courage to go ahead and do this stuff. you know, in a weird way, some of the other people, a lot of other guys like Jerkmonger, Elliot Fernandez. He inspired me. My buddy Brian. A whole bunch of people are doing this. They kind of inspired me to do this, even if it's not great. So we'll work on that production quality. And, you know, people even like, you know, the last time I spoke to Malin on one of the streams, it's kind of like, you need to get out of here. You need to be, you more, you know, you got to hammer on it. You got to get on it. You got to do that hustle. And so I want to say thanks to everybody. You guys, thanks for checking it out. Shortly before I go, if there's any questions about DragonGuard, anything you need to know, why don't you shoot it to me in the chat. I'll try to answer it here. But as it goes, you're going to be seeing more pages in the next couple of weeks. The idea is to, the original idea was to launch it in February, and I might move that by a couple of weeks just because I know that Edwin and a couple other people, it seems like, are all piling on to February. I just did by the way, I'll throw that in there. Eric Minotowski I did a cover for his Shadow Century book, and it's the villains cover, and you can check that out. Look up Shadow Century, the mailing list, the pre-launch is on Indiegogo. Let me see. Excuse me, sorry, mouth's dry. But, you know, we were looking at February. A lot of books are coming in there. And now with March, I'm thinking about possibly going into the first week of March. It hasn't been, it hasn't been decided on. But yeah, you know, and Captain Hills, yeah, late February, early March. Yeah, that's it was Mike's suggestion, and he had mentioned that. So that's why I had planned on it. I know with Doug TeNapel is just going to have another monster launch. You know, I'm pretty sure. So if he does that, I don't want to be, you know, I don't want to have to fight for sales in his initial launch. So I got to, you know, try to watch where I launch it at, you know, and not get crushed by the tide. So that's my plan. But everything's full steam ahead. You guys are going to see new pages. You guys are going to see it whenever I can. If you watch the streams, I'll probably, when I'm on with Mike or the auctions, I'll probably flash a page here and there. I'm going to be sharing it on Instagram, Twitter, KevHulk73 at Twitter, KevHulk73 at Instagram, and Kevin Sharpe Art on Facebook. I have a Facebook page for Kevin Sharpe Art. And you guys check that out. I will be updating you. And I hope everybody, you know, at least enjoyed hearing me yammer for a little bit. It's my first stream. If you could share, like, comment, do anything, just, you know, we want to be there. I want you guys to be along for the ride. I want to get as many people as possible. And you guys have an awesome day. All right. See ya.